Hello everybody, welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia and today I'm going to present my December TBR. Believe it or not, we are right on the edge of the last month of 2024. So it is time to do one more TBR for this year, and then December is going to be full of wrap-up videos, best of videos, maybe a holiday video, who knows, but it's time to move into that mode of the year. But first we need to talk about what I'm planning to read. So I'm filming this video on the Sunday before Thanksgiving because we're going to be out of town most of the week, and I'm going to schedule this to play I think on Wednesday because I'm going to miss my Tuesday and my Friday, so I think I'll just put this on Wednesday, and then I might make one on Sunday after I come back. That's my plan. We'll see what happens. I'm kind of ready for the next segment of reading. We're getting out Christmas decorations here at the house and kind of have that up before we go so it's there when we get back. I think you can see part of my little library room tree back here behind me. I set that up yesterday. But when I get back, it's going to be the last day of the month, and so it's going to be time to jump right in to the December reading. So I have several books that are planned, buddy reads, group reads, things I had in mind already, and then I have some pile of possibility books. I've talked in the last few videos about mood swings and mood shifts from just recently with different events going on that we have talked about numerous times. But my original 10 before the end, some of that's going to have to turn into maybe 10 to begin. Well, it won't be 10. Well, maybe I'll add some more in, but some of those just, the mood is no longer mooding. So I'm pulling from some of those books and adding in some others. And I'm really having a hard time right now gauging what I will feel like reading. Other than, I don't feel like changing any of the things I committed to for groups and buddies and all of that. But it's the free choice books that I have a hard time imagining exactly what I'm going to feel like reading. Now, I do know that I will read a lot of holiday books. We have a nice little collection of Christmas picture books and some longer pieces too. That sometimes I feel like reading a longer one, like A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I don't know if I'm going to read that this year, but I will definitely be pulling out our Christmas picture books and enjoying those. And I do have my little Truman Capote book that I got. Where? That's not it. Hold on. Here it is. I'm going to take this with me on the Thanksgiving trip because there's a Thanksgiving story or novella in there, but then there's also two Christmas stories. One of them is A Christmas Memory, which is one of my favorite pieces of Christmas literature, and I read it every year. I love that story so much. I usually read it 2 or 3 times every year because I just love it that much. And then there's one called One Christmas, and I don't know that one at all. So I'm going to read The Thanksgiving Visitor, and I might delve into these other ones. We'll see if I feel like getting the jump on Christmas during our trip or if I wait and save the other ones till I get back. I'm not sure. But that's the kickoff with Christmas stories. I've talked several times about the group reading project that I am in, reading the translated novels of Claudia Pineiro. The Pineiro Project group members keep growing. I'll put their names in the box, in the description box, in case you are curious who is in this group. And we have added some more people along the way. And we are currently reading Time of the Flies. And I can't talk about this book yet. Well, this isn't a wrap-up book, wrap-up video anyway, but this is what we're on right now. But I'm just bringing this up because I want to show you the next book we're going to read, which will be in December, and also another piece of my December TBR relates to this book as well. So when we finish Time of the Flies, the next one that we're going to read, I think starting after December 7th or 8th maybe, it's not real set in stone, where people are reading at different speeds and nobody's in any kind of rush. So we might, I don't know if we'll adjust these dates, but the next one is Thursday Night Widows. And this one actually has a Netflix show that was produced maybe a year or two ago. And here's the brief synopsis. 3 bodies lie at the bottom of a swimming pool in a gated country estate near Buenos Aires. Under the gaze of 15 security guards, the pampered residents of Cascade Heights lead a charmed life of parties and tennis tournaments, ignoring the poverty outside the perimeter wall. Claudia Pineiro's novel eerily foreshadowed a criminal case that generated a scandal in the Argentine media. But this is more than a tale about crime. It is a psychological portrait of a middle class living beyond its means and struggling to conceal deadly secrets. Set during the post 9/11 economic meltdown in Argentina, this story will resonate among credit-crunched readers of today. I think that in the Netflix adaptation, they changed the setting to Mexico City. I looked it up and I saw something about that. But anyway, never mind about the movie. This is the book that we're going to read. It sounds really good. And all of her books are patterned around some sort of element of crime, but they all really explore Argentinian societal structure, particularly women's roles, misogyny, mothers and daughters, and other societal pressures. So I'm expecting that those things will come into play, and it sounds like it from the description. Now, the other book, it's not a book, it's a play. There's a play that I have requested from the library, and it's not here yet. Based on my reading of Time of the Flies, I really want to reread Medea by Euripedes. And I cannot get into why, because we are right at the beginning of discussing the book, and some people are just starting the book. I don't want to spoil anything about why several of us that have already finished the book felt a need to read or reread Medea. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to tantalize that out there. I'm turning tantalize into a verb. And I'll talk about it more when I get there and when I am able to tell you more about Time of the Flies. So the Pineiro Project is kind of a long-range project, but I also have a couple of buddy reads this month planned with bookish friends. And the first one is Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf by Edward Albee. So yes, another play. And this is the beginning, or it kind of already began. There's the soft launch of my modern play reading project, which is a 2025 project that I have concocted for myself of 20th and 21st century plays. I will talk more about that when I do a video about 2025 reading plans. But it got a little of an early launch because in November, my band book club at the library, we talked about A Streetcar Named Desire. And so that kind of started this project a little bit in advance. And I'm going to read Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf with Joe O'Malley, also known as Too Tight Lautrec. And I will put a link to that channel as well. This was on my list of plays I wanted to reread. And I really do not remember. I know that I've read it, but all I remember is it has to do with a rather, I don't know if they're a toxic couple or just it's a very volatile evening and there's a middle-aged couple and a younger couple and it's kind of intense. That's it. That's my entire recollection. And I think Elizabeth Taylor was in the movie. That's it. That's all I got. So my goal with these plays is to read them, discuss them, and hopefully be able to watch a staged presentation of them. I don't mind watching the movies, like the famous movies, but I also really kind of want to see them as plays. It was first published in 1962. I know that I read it in the 80s as a student. I took a class, and I didn't do a monologue in the class from this book. I did one of his other plays. Maybe it was a zoo story. I took this class called Literature and Performance, and the whole class was about basically reading out loud. And it actually was an accidental good preparation for my future career as a librarian, but I didn't know it at the time. And so we had to perform different things: poetry, prose, drama. We had to perform pieces in front of a class. But you had the script, but you weren't supposed to be just reading it. You're supposed to kind of memorize it and use it as a prop. I'm not really sure what the purpose of this class was. For teachers? I don't know. It was just a bunch of English majors that were so nerdy that we would take a class where the class was reading stuff out loud to the class. But I loved this class, and it had a great professor. Wow, I really digressed here, but I did read something by Edward Albee that wasn't this in that class. That has nothing to do with the buddy read. Hang on, Joe. I'm going to focus when we actually talk about the play. Okay. When I was talking about that, I remembered I need to throw in The Giver is the book for the December banned book at the library. But I read The Giver earlier this year. I read the whole Giver quartet with Michael Clarke, and so I don't need to read it again so soon. I'm just going to wing it through the immense and always focused powers of my brain to participate in that discussion. Speaking of Michael Clarke, we have two books we're planning to read together this month. The first one, get a piece of paper out of it, is Walk Two Moons by Sharon Creech. This is a reread that we haven't read. Neither of us have read this in many years. It's a middle grade novel. This one won the Newbery Award in what year? The book was copyright 1994, so maybe 95. I don't remember a whole lot about it. I know it's a mother and daughter story. It has to do with a girl who's on a trip with her grandparents. They're kind of eccentric. Don't know if her mother disappeared. Let's see, yes. Her mother left one April morning for Idaho, promising to return before the tulips bloomed. Sal's mother has not, however, returned. It's about Salamanca Tree Hiddle. It's a girl's name. Just remember that it's very touching. There's layers. There's several different people's stories woven together. It's one of those things where the mood of the book is in my memory, but the details are not. So I'm really looking forward to reading it again. I think it's going to be a good choice for this month. Kind of something rich and textured to get into. And then also, wait a minute, there's about to be an avalanche. A little bit later on in the month, we're going to read The Vegetarian by Han Kang. We both want to try this author who just won the Nobel Prize for Literature. Neither of us have read any of her work. I've been seeing a lot of different videos reviewing her work, and there's a lot of wildly different opinions about the work itself and which novels different people prefer, like, dislike. There's just a whole lot of different commentary and reviews swirling around out there, but this is her best known piece, and so this is the one that we're going to start with and just see how it goes. So this will be a little bit later on in the month. I got lucky that it was in at my library, but Michael is on a wait list, so once we both have a copy, then we will proceed. The next book I want to share is my nonfiction selection for the month, and this is not really surprising because I said I was going to read This Boy's Life again. I reread The Duke of Deception this month in November for Nonfiction November, earlier in the month, and this is his brother's memoir, Tobias Woolf. So Jeffrey Woolf wrote The Duke of Deception, and as I said when I read that book, their parents divorced. Tobias is about 10 years younger. The parents divorced. Tobias lived with his mother, and Jeffrey lived with his father. So he wrote a book about his memoir of growing up with his con artist father, and then Tobias lived with the mom. So this is his story of growing up, also in an erratic manner. And I did read it years ago. So I did see the movie. I know a lot of people have seen the movie with young Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro playing the stepfather. I can't remember who plays the mom. I'll put the name up. I can't remember who it was. Was it Ellen Barkin maybe? I don't remember. So anyway, this is my reread that I've had in mind for a while. And if I get struck with a fancy to read some other nonfiction, then something else might pop into the mix. So that is the end of the planned reads. And now we get into the random section of the video because I have all of these books. I have books on the shelf, I have books on the cart, I have books on my library list, and I have this kind of amorphous, fluctuating reading mood syndrome going on. So I'm just going to share with you some things that are really catching my attention right now today while I'm making this video. Whether or not they're all going to stay in the lineup, who can say? All right, so I have two books that I picked up at the library. One of them is a Booktube Made Me Do It, a FOMO, and that is a book by Becky Chambers. And I keep hearing about Becky Chambers. And mainly I hear about this series and then another one about something about a planet. So I know that one is science fiction. I'm not sure if this is science fiction fantasy. I'm really not sure. It's called A Psalm for the Wild Built, and it says it is a monk and robot book. I think there's 2 or 3 books in this series. It is a slim little volume. I thought it would be a good place to test out whether I like Chambers' style. And I've heard nothing but good things about this book, but it's one of those ones that I was nervous about because the description sounds like it could be too cozy for my taste. But based on the people who said they really loved this book, I felt like it was worth taking the risk because I trust their opinion. And sometimes there is a very fine line where I like something kind of comforting, but not too cozy. I am looking for comfort off and on in between. Maybe not every book, but maybe like every other book. It says, it's been centuries since the robots of Panga gained self-awareness and laid down their tools. Centuries since they wandered in mass into the wilderness, never to be seen again. Centuries since they faded into myth and urban legend. One day, the life of a tea monk is upended by the arrival of a robot, there to honor the old promise of checking in. The robot has one question: what do people need? But the answer to that question depends on who you ask and how. They're going to need to ask it a lot. They kind of had me at tea monk, and then they threw in a robot, and then they threw in a perplexing question. So I am very, very curious about this book. If you have read it, you can tell me what you think. Or really about any of these books. The other book I got at the library, I saw this on a list. I don't remember what the list was. It was one of those, I don't know if it was great new releases or best of this or best of that. All those kind of lists are starting to really proliferate right now. But I saw it on this list, and then I saw it on the shelf at the library, and it's called There Is a Rio Grande in Heaven. That looks like like a mango. Yeah, it's like somebody slicing a mango, and then there's the reflection of the eyes. The author is Ruben Reyes Jr. It's short stories. I think this is a debut. Ruben Reyes Jr. is the son of 2 Salvadoran immigrants and a graduate of the Iowa Writers Workshop. This is his debut novel. He lives in Brooklyn. And here is the description. An electrifying debut story collection about Central American identity that spans past, present, and future worlds to reveal what happens when your life is no longer your own. Woo, this sounds kind of timely. An ordinary man wakes one morning to discover he's a famous reggaeton star. An aging abuela slowly morphs into a marionette. A struggling academic discovers the horrifying cost of becoming a self-made man. Ruben Reyes Jr. conjures strange, dreamlike worlds to explore what we would do if we woke up one morning and our lives were unrecognizable. Boundaries between the past, present, and future are blurred. Menacing technology and unchecked bureaucracy cut through everyday life with uncanny dread. The characters, from mango farmers to pop stars to ex-guerrilla fighters to cyborgs, are forced to make uncomfortable choices. Choices that not only mean life or death, but might also allow them to be heard in a world set on silencing the voices of Central Americans. Okay, that just sounds really good. So this, I don't know, this might just be one of those surprise upset books coming in hot here at the end of the year. So I definitely am going to make room for this. But the last few books are kind of chonky, and a couple of them were on my 10 before the end list, and I still have not read them. But I have 3 books, and they all are calling out to me in different ways, and I want to read at least one of them this month. And the other 2 will definitely stay on my list for the early part of next year. I wanted to share them all real briefly, tell you why I'm thinking about them, and I don't know which one I'm going to pick. But first I'll show the ones that you've seen before. So I do have The Night Alphabet, which is popped up on a couple of best of the year lists. It's by Joelle Taylor, and it's kind of dystopian. It has to do with a woman that has all these tattoos, and they each tell a story, and she's having them connected, and the thread that's connecting them is like opening the gateway into the stories. And they're all across different times and geography, so I think we just go in and out of all these different stories, but it's set in the future. As the summary at the bottom says, it's a deep investigation into human nature and violence against women. So not a happy book, but it sounds, if you read the whole blurb, it sounds very intense, maybe experimental, interesting formats, strong themes, so that it sounds like I could get really immersed in there. And then we have one of the books that's always the bridesmaid and not yet has been the bride, is Collected Works by Lydia Sandgren. There must be a record for how many times I've mentioned this book. And this is a big old family saga about a Swedish family that, and it's translated by Agnes Broom. There's a mother who disappeared years before. The father is an author. He's getting older. I don't know. We probably go back and forth in time, and everybody's all messed up and complicated. So that's always good times. And so this also is high up on my list. And then my third big old door stopper. Well, this one's maybe it's a little slimmer. That could be a factor in its favor. I don't know. But I have This Is Happiness by Niall Williams. I got this book at the library bookstore in the basement of the San Antonio library. And I haven't taken off the Mylar because it's glued down all the way down the whole length of the book. So I'm afraid it might rip it up too much. So I may just leave the Mylar there. But this is kind of intervening in my list I'd already made because I'm having that Irish novel feel, and it's been a few months since I read a good Irish novel. And this is Irish Small Town, and it also has, I guess, I don't know if it's a sequel or another book set in the same town, kind of like how Colm Toybeen has several books that kind of are in that town that Eilish from Brooklyn grew up in, but they're not all about her. But so I don't know if the new book is directly a sequel or if it's just a companion. But seeing another one come out, and I haven't read this, and they're both getting these really strong reviews. I've heard so many people say that they just really love this book. So there's a small town in Ireland that's about to undergo a bunch of change. I think electricity is coming. The advent of electricity, the endlessly procrastinated advent of the electricity. So maybe I've read several Irish novels where I find out rather surprisingly that it is not as far back in time as you think it is when you first start reading the events in that town. One that comes to mind is Small Things Like These. It was really shocking when all of a sudden you realize the book's set in the 80s when it feels like it's the 50s. But so this one too, it sounds like it's taken them a while to sort of be ready to come up to current times and get their electricity. And then, I don't know, all the stuff going on with the people in the town. And I just love a book like that. So that is definitely in the running as well. That might not be all. I do have some other travel, and sometimes travel affects what I decide to take with me. And so stay tuned. There may be a surprise book in my month that I have not yet selected to go along with some of my December travels. So we'll see about that. And I reserve the right to change my mind on any of these books that I already talked about. But I'd love to hear what you are thinking about my selections or what you're looking forward to reading in December. And as always, take care. If you're celebrating Thanksgiving, I hope you have a wonderful time. And I will be back probably at the end of the weekend to wrap up my reading. And until then, take care. Bye-bye.